to FAPCCCA TV, the Stop the Asian Hate campaign, brought to you by a grant from the California State Library in collaboration with the Burlington Community Services and Housing Development. I'm your host, Thelma Sugay from FAPCCCA, Fil-Am Press Club of California, and this is going to be the first of a whole series for a year-long media grant period, and we hope you will learn a few things. Let's try and all help stop the Asian hate, and instead let's educate. We'll be right back after a few reminders.
Hello, this is Aaron Akins. I'm doing a live performance at the Catalina Jazz Club in Hollywood on Sunset. Doors open at 7 o'clock. Showtime is at 7:30. I hope to see you there.
Here with us today is our guest psychologist, Dr. Jeff Ring.
Well, Thelma, I'm so happy to be sitting with you today.
Yeah.
I decided as a youth that I wanted to become a Spanish-speaking psychologist, even though I didn't speak Spanish in my family. And that's what I pursued. I felt like if I learned psychology and Spanish, I could help a lot of people in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And I was very successful with both of those things. But I realized that just speaking Spanish was not going to make me an effective clinician.
It was not enough.
It was not enough. I needed to understand the whole cultural background of my patients, their immigration history, their family structure, their spiritual life, and that helped a lot as well in the clinical relationship. Really sort of learning and understanding that it's so hard to leave a place that was home, and it's so hard to arrive in a place that is not home. But then, Thelma, I realized that there was much more I needed to understand if I was going to be effective, which was all about the ways that oppression and racism and sexism really tear at the health and mental health of individuals, families, and communities. I think that the biggest challenge has been the heaviness of how society, how we treat one another, the harshness with which neglect, hurt, the violence of racism, and that it's just such a powerfully rooted system. It takes incredible courage to do things differently and not just the way. Racism as a system would prefer that we don't talk about it, especially white folks.
Yes.
That we just ignore and let things unfold. And I'm not willing to take that stand. I think that the most important thing we can do is to name racism when we see it, to take care of the person to the left of us and take care of the person to the right of us, and to share our power and to do things differently with humanity.
We thank you. And I know that you were heavily involved with George of the YMCA Glendale in putting this program together, Neighbors in Dialogue.
You and I collaborated on that project,
yes.
Thelma, a wonderful collaboration.
Yes.
That was really an invitation for members of the community to meet one another, to talk more openly about who we are, what our values are, what's important to us. And in that way, what happens kind of magically, preconceptions, the stereotypes, the biases, they really do melt away through the narrative linking together.
I agree. So when we come back, we'll talk about the next steps.
Very good.
We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Nelly Reyes Schwab, people call me Lanelle, and I am here to invite you all to our new nonprofit Assistance Services Institute for Asians in North America, or ASIANA for short. It is something that we offer to our people of color, to diverse minority groups, mostly Asian women who are very talented as creatives, artists, or healthcare professionals. If you want to take your talents or your systems to the next level, where it can be your legacy building, contact us, because we are gonna give to you all the information how you can be helped with our ASIANA app that's been in the works. Thank you so much again, ASIANA, and we will welcome you anytime that you are ready to go and build your legacy. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time.
very special guest, Lanelle Reyes Schwab. Welcome, Lanelle, to our show.
Yes, my real name is Nelly, and Nelly Reyes from the Philippines. I'm proud to be a Filipino American, and people call me Lanelle because it is how they called me in the past, representing women who are a very giving woman. So I had my business's name after Lanelle Health Pro. I had a show, the Lanelle Connection Show.
We have a highly educated woman who has achieved a lot in her lifetime. I know she's worked as a CPA for a firm. I know she's worked for the government in the Philippines. So talk to us about that particular incident.
Well, I don't want to mention a store name. I think it was an evening wherein I was actually going to buy some healthy foods because it's a healthy food store because I'm passionate about eating healthy. And I parked my car very close to the front, and what happened was I took a cart, and that cart
Was blown by the wind, you say?
got blown by the wind and hit another person's car. Of course, I had to run for it.
Yeah.
And at the time that I was
You didn't catch
holding
it in time?
No, I didn't catch it in time. It
Okay.
already hit somebody's car.
Right.
And long story short, there was a false witness. She's a Hispanic. And the owner of the car is somewhat like either I don't know what
Armenian,
the race
yeah.
is, but it's a Mediterranean. I'm not mentioning this because I'm trying to discriminate anyone, but I'm just trying to put it as an
To visualize,
emphasis.
just to give a picture,
Because
yes.
I'm the only Asian in that particular lot at that time.
Okay.
So when I did that, they immediately grabbed me. They
As
ran
in
up to-
physically?
Yes, and then I went inside the store, of course, to report to the manager. And the manager didn't do anything. And they followed me, and they were yelling and pointing their fingers at me. And then when I was about to leave, because nothing is going on, because I reported what happened, the particular store supervisor, one of the supervisors, stopped me saying, I have to wait for the police.
You know your rights.
Yeah, I know my rights. This is a private parking area. It's a no-fault zone. Besides, why would you call the cop on me? There is no traffic violation. I'm on a halt. I'm not driving.
Right.
So if I ever hit somebody with your cart, it's not my fault because I have no control over the car. It was an accident, and so I was assaulted.
You were physically, it sounds like, huh, Jeff?
Assaulted physically and verbally,
Okay.
and they were asking money from me, and they said I have to pay it.
So at this point, you are upset and scared and angry, I would
I was
imagine.
crying. I had trauma, and there are times that I'm just not in the mood to talk to my husband. I was silent, and my husband would tell me like, "Why will you put the blame on me?" A lot of things going on.
So it
after
almost
that.
affected her marriage
yeah,
too,
it
Jeff.
affected
Lots
my
of
relationship. Yeah.
Yes.
Because deep inside me, of course, I was a bit angry, and I'm letting it go. But there's no shortcut. You cannot just
There's
let
no
go
resolution,
of the emotion. And then I filed the claim, and they refused the claim. And I was asking for the camera footage. They won't give it to me.
Well, I'm just interested in your story, Nelly. People were blaming you, they were attacking you, they were grabbing you, but I didn't hear anyone come up and ask
No.
how you were, or just defend your experience, or to even check in with any humanity or heart.
I said they have no basis of holding because that's illegal detention, so to speak, in a different scale, in a different level. Why will you hold me? They took my photo, they took the photo of my car, but they never wanted me to take their photo, and in fact, they grabbed my phone and throw it away.
Did anyone see them do that?
There were people, but they will not speak
No,
anything.
people are afraid to get involved in
No.
other people's
we,
business.
we should have a conversation about courage. And,
Yes.
and what did
Oh
you
my
learn
goodness.
about courage
Yes.
since you are the author of
Yes.
The
Did
Courageous
that lead you
Mindset?
to write
Yeah.
that book? That makes sense.
Yeah.
I would
And
think
then,
that had...
after that, I said to myself, this cannot be just like, you cannot just take this sitting down, but I do it in a non-confrontational way. That's what I am. I mean, I have a voice, but I know where to put it. I know
And
where
you
to
use
put my
the book.
mouth. I know where to put my mouth, where it should be. So what I did was to write a book. It's called The Courageous Mindset. It's an excerpt or a mini book or a prelude to my bigger book,
That's right.
which is called Through the Wings of Courage. That's my real book. It will be there, of course, because it's an update, because that's happening, and my book is going to be released maybe late this year or early next year. It's about, you living the life that you want. You being virtually able to express yourself and obtain or achieve success in whatever you want to do. Avoid toxic relationships, of course. And then loving yourself more. It still affects me right now by the sound of my voice. Whenever I remember it and I'm still shaking, that you have to have a presence of mind at that particular incident. They were asking for all my identification, even the cops. But I don't want to just divulge my address, because if you give it to the other person and somebody might chase me, you know,
Right.
you must know your rights first. So in that particular incident, I did not give it away. And what I did was to call my director in my hometown,
Yes.
and made her witness what the police officer was doing on FaceTime.
Smart.
And then you know what happened?
What?
The police officer mellowed down because there's a witness.
Yes.
Because I have no witness in my favor. So you guys, so that's one more thing. You have to learn how to defend yourself
use your
in
tools.
in that manner. You have the phone. Yeah, they threw away my phone, but I have another phone. Incidentally, you know, I posted it on social media.
You did?
Just for awareness. That's another tool. Using social media to call on a peaceful resolution of all this.
Yes, but I like the way you said use it as a tool for peaceful resolution, because other people use social media for negative
They encourage violence.
things.
stoking.
Yes,
Yeah.
for stoking
you,
and canceling.
you ask us a lot of important questions, Nellie. You ask us about where is the courage within us? How would we handle this situation? And how can we be an upstander, a support to our neighbors, to others that are going through hard things? And how can we do things in a new way, not just the way we've always done them, laden with racism and hate in this land?
That's why it daunted me that one day I woke up, and of course I thought about Thelma, was also very, a very courageous woman, supporting her fellow Asian women. Said, Thelma, you think it is a good thing that if we put up a nonprofit to empower Asian women?
Tell us more about that.
Yes.
It's called
Asiana.
Assistance Services Institute for Asians in North America. It is intended for Asians in diverse minority groups, mostly women, and the youth, meant to bridge the gap between the American best practices and the Asian and minority ways of doing their means of living, and for them to be able to use us as a springboard in order to improve as to their technology, as to their creativity. We can search funding for you, and we can also help you with our capacity building assistance, which is most of the directors or the officers, founding officers of Asiana are actually mentors. They're experts in their
Yes.
fields. In order for them to express their voice and be out there, be courageous, knowing that they're not alone.
And I am made to understand you have 3 areas of focus for
Yes.
Asiana. It's technology, healthcare, which is also the same area that he's in.
Yes,
Basic.
as we
Well,
need we need a
Oh,
mental
God,
health
yes.
focus, and then community
And
health centers,
entertainment, arts
media,
and okay,
media collaborations. Yes, so we are encouraging artists, creatives who have concepts. We will provide them a tool, which is our Asiana app, which we are going to create, which they can use, and then they can showcase whatever their outputs are with angel investors, with corporate sponsors. Because there's 8 board of directors and there's 4 the advisory board. We are pulling together our strength because I cannot do it alone.
Well, first I want to just say, Nellie, as I sit with you in this conversation, I am uplifted and inspired.
Yes, thank
You are a woman of incredible vision and courage and energy.
Thank you.
And you have taken what has been a really difficult and challenging journey, transformed it into an incredible platform for helping to
Yes.
uplift others. So
Amen.
thank you for who you are
Yes.
and what you are doing, and for how you show up. And I think, Thelma, this is the question. How do we show up? How do we show up every day in our lives in situations like this? Are we going to stand idly by? Or can we find courage to be curious about what's going on? Can we find the courage to help and nurture and support those that are the targets of racism and violence, be it at the hands of police or communities or whoever it might be?
So Jeff, personally speaking, I know what I would have done if I were
Please.
there. Okay, so yes, I would have come to her rescue. But when I say come to your rescue, I would have found out. I would have been very. Do you need help? Can I ask anyone what seems to be the problem? And so obviously to diffuse the situation. But what if the person you call, which is the police department, who you feel was the right person to call to protect you, ends up doing exactly what they did to her? How do we handle that? Obviously document it, and she did file.
One thing to keep in mind, Thelma, is that we need to name racism when it's happened.
Don't be afraid to name it. Call it
We
out.
need to call it out. Second, we have to be curious about all the ways that racism unfolds. We have to be looking at it in our institutions and organizations and
They come in
policies and
different forms.
procedures. And then third, we find the courage to act, to stand up, to take care of our neighbors as we take care of our own selves and family.
Transforming your vulnerability into victory.
I love that, Nelly.
Yes,
And
and so I really filed a formal complaint. I documented it because that's the right way to do. So what we're going to do right now is to inform people, inform that you have somebody. You can call us just in case nobody does.
it's a process, but we're beginning the process, and with the help of people like our dear Nelly Lanell, who are brave enough to show their face, talk about their personal pain, I think we can do this.
And also, I would like to thank the facilities of the Philippine Consulate General
Yes.
Cultural Group.
Yes.
Right now, we are having, that's why you see me in my costume.
Yes.
We are having the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Yes.
And so this is celebrating all Asians and Pacific Islanders in the nation. And for everything else that we do, we will always think of you.
Oh, that's wonderful. We'll be right back after a few reminders.
Thinking of premeditated violence, perhaps even of killing someone? Your thoughts cannot be ignored or unheard. LifeTarget.org has links to over 400 services ready to help you now. LifeTarget can help you find a proxy, someone always there to help you overcome your thoughts of violence, anger, and hate. Don't let your negative emotions take control. Your loved ones and your community need the positive side of you. You're not alone. LifeTarget has your back.
Here we are with the top honchos of Carson City. That's how I'd like to call that. We have Moises Aglipay of PIDF, Sergeant Hernandez, of course our very own councilman Jim Deere, and the president of PIDF, Federico, and of course Pulido, who is the deputy field officer for Jim Deere. We're going to talk about something other than independence, if you don't mind. I know we're celebrating the 124th. It's actually not totally unrelated, because obviously with our independence came a few struggles leading up to our independence. So we're here to talk about Asian hate incidents, how you feel about that. I know Moises, and Moises, if you don't mind being on cam, sharing a little bit of those. They weren't that great, thankfully, but enough to have you remember them every so often and maybe bring about some pain every time you think about it. That's what you were sharing with me.
Asian hate probably can be summed up as starting before this whole thing even got big.
Yes.
I mean, myself, as an immigrant, I dated a Caucasian female girlfriend of mine back then. And then, of course, we broke up shortly after. The reason why, because one, parents didn't approve of my color, and of course, I'm an immigrant. And I know a second incident also, I was pretty much walking around casually in a public place, mall, and any other place. And of course, I would hear folks calling me names. I never knew when I was young, but now when I get to know what it means and stands for, then it's like, wow. And this is basically...
And you said it was FOB. You were called FOB, which is fresh off the boat.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is basically, Asian hate can be things such as like that.
Just small
Relation.
things.
Exactly.
It starts off small, but it could actually escalate.
Oh yes, definitely.
Right? And do the effects of those two experiences that you still recall affect you to this day?
In some cases, yes. And sometimes, I would like to also kind of share that, the thing situation, you just let it go, and you don't have to take matters in your own hand, But if it really gets to escalate, you know what to do, Really call law enforcement, let them know. And we need to have things recorded, and, if any type of attack on any APIs, it has to be reported no matter what.
As far as reporting incidents of hate, we do have a process in place with the Sheriff's Department. So regardless if you are a target or a victim of some type of racial slur or something along those lines, I would advise anyone to call the Sheriff's Department. We can report the incident in itself. It may not lead to an immediate arrest or criminal investigation, but that person can report it to us, and we will make notification that we'll document the incident accordingly. Of course, if the incident evolves to some type of violence or an assault or something of that nature, or vandalism, then that is something that is obviously criminal in nature. The Sheriff's Department or Carson Station, we will investigate that. We have a special team that looks into incidents that are hate crime specific, and we'll investigate it. And if an arrest needs to be made, then we'll do our best to do so.
That's interesting that you brought that up, because one of my first guests on this show shared about an experience of hers at a grocery store, a famous one, at the parking lot, whereby her car, it always happens, wind blows, car drives on its own, hits another car, and two women assaulted her saying, "You freaking F, you just ruined my car." And so she went inside to the management to say, "Help, I'm being assaulted." And instead they called the cops on her, on the one that was physically assaulted, who happened to be Asian, and took all her information but did not take the two other girls who had physically mishandled her. And then at the end of the day, it was only when she took out her phone, called a friend to witness everything. Police came, also went against her. Did they bog down? Why do you think it would have gone to that extent? And I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I mean, I don't know the specifics of that
Sure.
incident itself.
Right.
Overall, hate crimes carry a serious weight as far as penalty.
Yes.
So the thing about hate crimes is when it's committed against someone, there has to be proof that it was done as far as an assault for the purposes that they were of a certain race or ethnicity.
That's the one that's hard
So
to prove.
if
Okay.
let's say it leads to a fight, a confrontation,
Sure.
because something like, hey, your shopping cart hit my car,
Yes.
and in the process a racial slur gets said,
Yes.
that may not meet the criteria for a hate crime itself.
I see.
So on the law enforcement end, the investigative end, and it goes as far as if we're going to prosecute as a hate crime, we have to show and have proof that the assault happened specifically because they are of a certain ethnicity. People, we have a First Amendment right to say sometimes what we want. It might
Yes.
not be the nicest things,
Sure.
but if it's said in the course of some other event, or
Yes.
and hey, they just said, hey, they threw out a racial slur,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily mean the incident was race motivated from the
Got
get.
it.
Well, every nation on earth, there's discrimination against people that are new, immigrants, or another ethnicity or religion. In America, our nation was founded on the principle of inviting people from around the world of all ethnicities to become part of America.
Yes.
The dream, the ambitions should be fair and equal for every immigrant, every Native American. It's just a matter of, in our country, we know that there's a lack of education for understanding other cultures and other ethnicities. I'm an educator myself, and I always encourage people to learn more about other people, because a lot of the hate crimes come from pure ignorance and fear of the unknown.
Yes.
If people would come to this event today in
Yes.
Carson, Philippine Independence Day, and they're of another ethnicity, they would learn more about the rich, beautiful, wonderful culture of the Philippines, and then they wouldn't have fear of it,
Yes.
and they were less likely to emulate any type of hate crime.
Yes.
And so, it's a matter of education and learning and accepting and loving the way we
Yes,
should.
and we thank you, Jim, because you are one of the supporters of the Filipino American. Why the love for the Filipino Americans?
Well, I guess being born and raised 2 miles from where we're standing, always with Filipino friends as a child, and then I'm involved with many things like the Kayamangi Lions Club.
We've
the
adopted you as one of our own.
Basically, yeah.
So Fred, tell me, I know you're campaigning. How do you stand on Asian hate, and how can you, once elected, do something about it? And you're the president of PIDF for the year.
Well, I'm not campaigning for myself. I'm campaigning for the community.
Yes, yes,
Support
yes,
of the
yes.
community. I was born and raised in the Philippines myself, right? So I obviously have.
I'm sorry, you were born and raised.
Born and raised in Cagayan de Oro City in the
Oh,
Philippines.
nice.
yes.
Okay, that's where my
And
husband's
so
from.
that's where the love for culture, the love for
Yes.
country, and just the love for people
Yes.
came from. Having been living, working, praying, and playing here in the city of Carson in particular,
Yes.
there's definitely that affinity for the culture that we have. I know there is a challenge, there's a problem out there. Councilman Jim mentioned the educational aspect,
Yes.
the history of the country.
We have so many incidents here.
Yes, well, not in the city,
In the city?
specifically,
Really?
but if you look back at the history of the country, there's, you talk about like the Chinese Exclusion
Yes,
Act, there's
yes.
the Rescission Act,
Yes.
the anti-miscegenation laws.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that happened that were not necessarily, painted broad strokes are positive for any one particular
No,
culture.
for sure, yes.
But me, myself, I try to focus on fixing problems rather than
Yes.
focusing on the
On the
problems.
problem.
And so last year we did a Stop Asian Hate rally and vigil. That was with support of the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you.
June Aglipay was able to get me on board along with Tita Faye Coons, Richard Bist, Tita Paz Velasquez, and a handful of other community leaders to do something about
Yes.
what's happening out there.
Right.
And, you know, to Sergeant's point, when you see something, say something.
Right.
Right? Now, unfortunately, this happened last April. Stuff continued to happen on a national scale, not necessarily in Carson.
Right.
So what we did was we actually conducted the Defend Our Elders self-defense workshop here.
I was there.
Yes, yeah. So the press club was definitely there. Spotlight TV, did a spotlight on that event.
Yes.
So again, instead of focusing on the problems, we're looking for solutions. Initially, we're calling out the problem with the rally and the vigil, but then when stuff continued to happen, we decided that we needed to be more proactive and actually teach our community to defend themselves.
Right.
You know, use Philippine martial arts.
Yes.
Use whatever thing,
Diane was
whether
there.
Diana
I remember.
Inosanto, Guru Diana
Yes.
Inosanto, and Guru Alvin
remember
Katakuta
that.
were the ones that conducted the workshop.
Yes, we were there.
Along with Guru Baliki.
Yes.
So that's yes, there's a problem, but we don't necessarily dwell on the problem. We focus on solutions.
I love
to
that.
fix that.
Finally, Deputy Field Officer Pulido, talk to me about your thoughts. And now that you've been hanging out with Councilman Jim Deere,
Yes.
what experiences have you been exposed to?
Being born and raised in the city of Carson, actually, I used to play at this park here.
Oh, wow.
Skate park, baseball.
Sure.
Growing up in the community that is a lot filled with great Filipino Americans here. I love the culture. I love the heritage, and most importantly, going to school locally, like with St. Filomena. I've had many experiences with a lot of my Fil-Am brothers and sisters there, and it's amazing, and to hear the stories that they tell me that may be racially, slurred or very painful, unfortunate stories. It's unfortunate anyone has to go through that.
Right.
And as a fellow, neighbor and citizen, across the street I have Filipino brothers and sisters who are my neighbors as well. Here in Carson, I try to definitely stretch the idea, stretch the motive of saying, I accept them as our own, as our own brothers and sisters.
Right.
I'm a cross-cultural person, so working in public service, I deal with people of all races and nationalities, and it's my job to not look at the race, not look at the skin color, but to look at the heart and the person.
Spread the love, as they say.
Spread the love, and it's great. So thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you so much. And this is not the end of it. We'll probably be revisiting this group. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless.
We'll be right back after a few reminders. FAPCCCA TV segment on Spotlight TV. We have with us Mayor Pro Tem of Santa Ana, Phil Becerra, and of course, the CEO and founder and owner of the Carson Adult Health Daycare Center. Evelyn Andamo, ladies and gentlemen. She is not a stranger to anyone who's been here in the community for many years. Talk to me about this celebration. It is related to what I'm about to ask you. We're all trying to spread Asian love as opposed to Asian hate, which has been rampant, especially during COVID.
In my capacity, what I wanted to do was make sure that we actually addressed it. So in Santa Ana, what we've been trying to do is make sure we understand how rampant it is. So while the most law enforcement agencies have to report their stats once a year, we in Santa Ana, at my direction, and thankfully my council concurred, what we do now is we report it every month. And it's available on our city police department's website. So the idea is that we understand where it's coming from and how it's impacting our community. So of course, it's a very sensitive issue because, for me, I happen to be the first ever Filipino American elected to our city council and only the second ever Asian American in our 153-year history. So
That's so good to know.
but the good
I couldn't have guessed with the look. But yes, I guess the mestizo side.
I know.
Okay.
But after me, there was the third Asian American, which is a Vietnamese woman. And so we're seeing that diversity on our council and, of course, with our population. So it's something that we needed to address. And so given that rise, we, of course, sprung into action. When it comes to some of these cases, thankfully, we don't, get privy to all the details because obviously there are different varying issues. But I mean, thankfully for us, we haven't had anything on such a horrific scale that you hear in other communities.
But I know Carson has had it. Actually, since I live in Huntington Beach, I don't live in Carson.
She's a fellow Orange County.
Yes, we're both from
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you should know your mayor wrote
I
that.
know, of course, and I'm proud that we have a Filipino American there.
Yes, I did not even know that, to be honest with you. Sorry, my ignorance. But yes, I thought you were full American, and I know you're married to a Filipina who is a nurse but who was a lawyer. That is a lethal combination, I would say. So talk to me about what you've heard about, or maybe friends or family members that may have gone through something.
Well, fortunately, I really have not had any friend or family members who'd gone through this hate crime. However, when I first saw on Facebook, I believe in Facebook, that there was this lady who was actually harassed and kicked on, right
While on the floor,
without any response at all. My reaction was, gee, there are lots of self-defense classes who are actually having these kinds of classes available. And
So
I
you're
said
ready for
we
it.
should teach them, give it for a free discount, like a discount or a free class, and have all these Asians join them. And they did it in Carson.
Yes, I was about to say. I was there when they taught that class, and you know who taught it? Diane Inosanto. The great Diane Inosanto, who is the daughter of another famous martial artist, Dan Inosanto, who actually taught Bruce Lee.
Oh,
Yeah, something trivial. But yeah, she did say, don't try to be a hero, run.
Right, the first thing
That's
you do
good.
is you run.
Run
If
and
you
protect
can.
yourself.
But if somebody's already kicking you around, kick him back.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, in the right places.
Yeah.
Anyway, we want to be kind because we are celebrating the 124th Independence Day of the Philippines. So we'll be right back after a few reminders.
When healthcare frontliners were in our most difficult days, I wrote Misdiagnosed as a beacon of light and laughter. But what I didn't know then was that this script would go on to win the Chicago Screenplay Awards, and then Hollywood launched my screenwriting career. But this little show started it all, and it's getting a makeover into a live-action mockumentary in the vein of Modern Family and The Office. Now, welcoming producers and filmmakers to join the new team as we create the only medical comedy series currently on television, and one that will include the Pinoy perspective. So here it is, our opportunity. So come join the team and let's make this happen.
It's been a pleasure to be your host for this first episode of the Filipino American Press Club of California Association TV's Stop the Asian Hate program, brought to you by an award provided by the California State Library in collaboration with the Burlington Community Services and Housing Development. We'll see you next time.